I'm in Max.
You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast.
I'm in Max.
Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon. Why, hello! And welcome to, which is this? All right.
So
Confog. Season 23, episode 19 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
my name is Gina.
This is Tappy.
I'm Chris.
And I'm also producing. Let me switch to that. Hi,
spinning.
we're here.
Hi.
We're all here now.
Probably should go up, shouldn't
Yeah.
Sitting in front of my face.
Yeah, we probably should raise that up. All right.
Nice.
In this episode, we're going to be having some reflections about the game convention last weekend. And we're going to be... we got an email from Johnny from New Zealand, and he writes in about setting rules. And then Greg from Virginia writes in about trying new systems. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Now's a good time to send emails. We're on social media. Twitter, happyjacksrpg. Instagram, happyjacksrpg. Facebook, happyjacksrpg. And MeWe, happyjacksrpg. And I haven't posted on there in like a week and a half.
I finally tuned in and kind of looked around and then left.
There's not many people there yet.
Is that what everybody does?
Yeah.
Oh, we have like over 100 people in the Happy Jacks group there.
Wow.
So, if you would like to watch the show live, and we suggest you do, go to happyjacks.org/live at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Fridays when we do this show. Plus, of course, all of our APs. You can find the schedule for that at happyjacks.org/schedule, or if you're from England, schedule. There's one other thing. Oh, we have a forum, new forum, happyjacksforum.com. Happyjacksforum.com. Go on there, register. We're not going to change it again. It's changed.
3 times.
No, more than that.
Oh, 4.
5.
5?
Because the original one was
Five?
a WordPress based one.
Yeah.
And it outgrew it quickly.
Yeah.
Then I had one that was in like PHPBB that I was hosting.
Yeah.
And then it got hacked, and it was
Yep.
a pain in the ass recovering it. So then we
Pro
switched to
boards.
Pro Boards, and then we tried something else, and now we're on something else.
Oh man, the first Happy Jacks forums were that was awesome. Way back in the day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Before
miss
Facebook
that.
killed them.
Yeah.
yeah. Facebook really has kind of killed forums in
They were
Yeah.
a lot of
good.
ways. All right.
I love
so,
the new ones. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
The new forums are great.
Yeah. The big thing is we wanted it to be as mobile friendly as possible.
Yeah.
And the app, I mean, some people thought it was fine, but some people didn't like it, and it just wasn't. Didn't seem like it was cutting it, at least for some of us. So the convention. Now, obviously, we just had a convention show, so we don't need to rehash everything that happened. But did any interesting games anyone played after Saturday night? The show.
Yeah. We did For the Queen all night long.
Oh, after the show.
After the show. And I had to get up early.
The game.
Yeah, we did For the Queen all night long. I had to get up early because I was going to Scottish Festival in Long Beach, and I wanted to leave in time to find parking and all of that. But that was... I was up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning playing this game. And I blame the Happy Jacks people.
Right.
In particular. You know who you are. And, drinking, staying up too late, a full day at Scottish Festival. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Now this is a game that's not even out yet. It comes out in like June or July or something.
It's a really good game.
It's going to be pre-ordered pretty soon, I think, in
Oh, is it?
in
Okay.
March.
'Cause
And
I
they're
checked.
they're printing.
Evil Hat said the release date they were shooting
It's
for
the summer,
June.
yeah,
I think.
right?
It might say summer. Yeah.
Yeah, but they are. I think they're supposed to be pre-ordering in March.
Okay.
It's a fantastic game. We played it on ShadowCon also, so you can get an actual play and a of that. I think it was at the end of December.
Mm-hmm.
But we will also be, quick promo for Small Game Hunter, we'll be discussing that game on Small Game Hunter tomorrow, and then when it comes out in the cast.
That's tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're being cleaning it and taking
Yeah.
out the innards.
Yeah.
And then like splaying
Yeah.
it and then tanning its hide.
Looking for the
Right.
spleen.
And then with the little pins, what everything is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope not. Tomes is the only one that has a copy of the game, as far as I know. And
might
so if
have
you are pinning it and skinning it,
Right.
No, we would never do that.
I'm sure Alex
Well,
Roberts would have some words for Tomes.
Well, with small games, all you really have to do is just turn it inside out, right?
Right. Pretty much, yeah. Like quail, you
Yeah.
just pop the rib cage and you got those two little nice pizzas and wrap them in bacon.
No, sorry. It's not even the quail. All I can picture is when we had to dissect giant earthworms in 9th grade.
Well,
or
no,
whatever.
you don't turn those inside out.
I know, but
No.
I just was picturing that. And
we had to do the
it's
cow
icky.
eyes.
And they smelled bad.
We did. I had 2 different biology classes in high school. We did some kind of weird worm. It was a big worm. It wasn't an earthworm. And then we also did. I didn't take that class. Anatomy class did fetal kittens or cats. No, regular cats.
Okay.
This joke has just gotten out of control.
And then, but when I took marine biology, we had sharks, squids, and
Really?
sharks. Yeah.
Wow.
Squid
Little-
is most
little
tasty of
sharks.
sea creatures.
Yes,
Delicious.
I love them. So, anyone else play anything interesting?
I played in a vampire game that halfway through, like 2 Happy Jacks guys knocked on the doors as NPCs and then took us to another room where we were suddenly LARPing.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
Was that Dave's?
That is, yeah, that's
Dave
Dave
game?
Kaze's
I
game.
saw pictures.
That's basically it. And
Dave, he does elaborate games.
Yeah.
He does some elaborate stuff.
and this was really elaborate. So yeah, then we showed up to the room where there were 2 other Happy Jacks people already in character, with
in the boardroom.
yeah, in the boardroom.
Right.
And then then we played in the boardroom as basically a LARP for a good hour and a half, while
Yeah.
we were continuing to drink.
That's
And
what
we're
was
having
going on.
so much fun that we just kind of continued to drink. And then on
that's-
Friday, got way, way, way too drunk. And then everything went downhill from there.
Right.
But yeah, that was great. I mean, it was just things that are unexpected are always fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in the last Vault 818 game, what Jason did, where he taped new character sheets under for Brotherhood of Steel characters we were playing. Spoilers.
Right.
But it's he didn't have. He could have just passed them out. But just the whole thing of reaching under and grabbing it because they're already put there. It's just
and you
it's
get a
really
new character
fun.
sheet, and you get a new character
Yeah.
sheet.
But yeah, little twists, and especially because we're at a con, and so including all these other people that we know and love into this game that we're already playing, just a blast.
Yeah, that's super cool.
like doing something like that at a con. I wish I had thought of before, because it kind of sounds like a no-brainer all of a sudden. Of why don't you just bring in other people? But if it was at a regular table, you'd suddenly have a GM with 8 or 9 players.
Right.
But if you're LARPing, basically, you can just sit back and watch us do our stuff together.
Sure.
And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And then I ran a horror game with Mac that was Traveler that we didn't tell them. Well, they knew it was horror game. Then we told them Mac couldn't go. So we were doing Traveler instead. And then we told them halfway through that it was actually a Traveler horror game.
Cool.
And that was
Excellent.
fun. So
How'd
that
the
was
big
the AP.
how'd the big reveal work?
It worked okay.
That's what always
worked
happens.
okay.
Right? Always happens.
Big reveals. Big reveals.
Eh, sometimes big reveals are great.
Yes.
I've had them work really well.
Isn't it always, though, on the other end of the table, there's a big reveal for you, but for the rest of the table, it's a reveal? Oh, well, that happened. Okay.
No, I've had ones where they're like, "Oh shit,
you would think
what
it'd be
the
bigger.
actual fuck?" But
Yeah.
because it's an AP.
I think that's the
there's this-
exception rather than
is-
the rule, though.
Yeah,
The
it's
big
rather
reveal
fun, yeah.
going over like that.
We also had to tell them ahead of time that it was going to be a horror game, so nobody was like, "I didn't sign up for a horror game. I don't want that."
Right.
And make sure that people watching knew it was. So it was like, haha, surprise, we're back to a horror game. They're like, oh, okay, well, we're doing a horror game again.
Right.
As opposed to if we're playing a Traveler game, and then this is like the 5th or 6th session, and then suddenly they realize they're in The Shining in jump space, and they can't get out. Oh, fuck.
Right.
That's a completely different feeling. But it worked pretty okay.
Cool.
And the game itself as like a haunted house sort of movie worked really well. So that was a lot of fun.
So it was like, what was that movie in the 90s, the Event Horizon?
Yeah. Yeah, I went in, see, that's the idea, because I went into that movie not knowing it was a horror movie.
Yeah.
I went
Yes.
in thinking it was a
Sci-fi.
legit
Scared the shit out of
hardcore
me.
sci-fi
Yep.
movie, and
Yep.
then halfway through I'm
So
like,
did I.
oh, fuck, this is horror.
Yeah.
And
The
then it went
tent?
way
The
downhill.
scratching on the tent.
Yeah. Oh man. It's like, I want to do that. I want to give people that feeling that I had of, oh my god, this is not sci-fi.
Right.
Didn't work that great, but it was okay. Yeah, like it wasn't bad. It was okay.
Cool.
So I'll need to figure out how to do that later
Right.
in a better way.
I have to repeat my con experience next time because I always want to be on this show so I could talk about all
Right.
this stuff. And I had a medical emergency.
Right.
And I'm alive. I'm not
Yay.
transhumanist Gina. But I.
They re-sleeved you.
I know, but I was gonna run. I had 2 games I was supposed to help facilitate for the Queen, Kagamatsu, which I was excited about. Velvet Glove I was gonna run, and play Aegon 2, and all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited for next con. But I want to hear too because I was stalking all y'all's social media all weekend long so I could kind of stay in the scene, and I was really excited about the stream.
Right.
It seemed like it went
It worked-
really
it worked well.
It
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Cool.
And the session that I was in was really amazing. It was at Merkurger.
That was Saturday morning.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was really great. And Tomes did a great job facilitating, but I have to say, Jason did a great job producing. He was
Awesome.
knobbing and dialing,
Now you guys
That's
did-
actually we have an extra knob and dial board.
Knob
that
and
just,
dial. Yeah,
you were
it's not
just-
attached to anything.
Right.
Now
yeah.
you ran a vampire game on Friday night. I'm sure you talked about it, but it was Vampire Friday.
Yeah.
And then Merkurger, and then Kurt Potts ran a game.
Yes.
But that was all before the.
That was all
before.
before.
That was all
Yeah,
before.
So then after the stream was Good Society and your Traveler game, right?
Yeah.
On the
Yeah,
stream?
on Sunday,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, talk about you have a Kickstarter happening and a game coming out. Let me just say, Kickstarters, do your due diligence. There's always a risk. You've been warned. Go.
Well, on that note, yeah, and we talked a lot about it last week, so I won't belabor, but I'm very excited about it because it's been going on. It's a very strong start, so it's very, very excited about it.
This is Great American Novel.
This is
right?
the Great American Novel, a role-playing game, not to be confused with a Great American Novel.
That would be a little presumptuous.
Yeah.
I'm doing a Kickstarter for my Great
for
American
my
Novel.
Great American Novel. Although, when I was looking at Kickstarter, I saw some people did exactly that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Multiple people, right.
Wow.
I need money for my Great American Novel.
That's some high self-esteem.
Yeah.
And maybe it's justified. I don't know.
It's a character-driven system so that you can play and focus on character and not plot. Works in any setting. You brought up The Shining. I think I talked about this last week. We played The Shining, and it was very The Shining. It went really well.
That's
But you're
excellent.
not worried about any rules. You're just worried about what you want, and that's it. And we're gonna run it tomorrow for ShadowCon
Yeah.
with Gina,
I'm very excited.
and we're going to be
What time are you guys doing that?
7.
7.
7
Pacific.
p.m.
Yep.
7 p.m. Pacific time.
7
Yeah.
p.m. Pacific. We got the lovely Adam and Joey and Kathleen and I will be playing Great American Novel.
Playing
Also excited.
Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And I have
I'm
been
just
watching the
watching that
shit
now.
out of it.
Right?
I'm watching it.
I'm in the 3rd season right now.
So good.
So we're going to do kind of season 1. I'm actually thinking our own thing,
yeah.
but we'll talk about it tomorrow. But
Absolutely.
anyway, GAN, it works, lovingly called GAN. It works great on all of those settings. The Kickstarter is going strong right now. We have, I say we because Gallant Knight Games is publishing.
That's awesome.
We are at almost $600 or $700 more dollars.
Aw.
So we're just 5 days in. So yeah, if you haven't backed it, please
That's
do.
excellent.
You have until the 30th of which month?
February?
No.
No, it's
There aren't
30
30 days. 30th
so-
of March.
Yeah.
30th of February.
There are no 30 days.
Our goal is $1 billion.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's a lot of fun. But come to the Kickstarter at least just to see Robbie Bear's art. He was at the con, and he's an amazing artist. He's done some really good work already on the Kickstarter.
Awesome.
And we'll see you tomorrow night, too.
Yeah,
I'll be
congratulations.
sitting there.
You'll be sitting here.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excited.
All right. Understanding setting rules from Johnny from New Zealand. Kia ora douchebags. I don't remember what that means. I think he
I
said.
looked it
It's
up.
a greeting,
It just
but-
says hello and,
Yeah. Is it
Mary?
Mary?
yeah.
Okay. Johnny from New Zealand with a question I've spent more time thinking about than I've spent playing RPGs in the last year. Sad face. How important is it to you as a player that the rules that govern the world in which the game takes place, most commonly magic or future technology, are easily understandable? Reason number 347 that I think D&D is total horseshit is that the magic system is totally incomprehensible. Either that or understanding them requires taking 20 levels in Total Fucking Loser, plus there's also a feat you have to take for that, plus taking all of the feats that remove any need for social interaction. My, he threw down the gauntlet there.
A little hyperbolic, don't you think?
A little bit, I think so.
I want to hear what reason 346 is.
Right, yeah. Well, I want to know what number 1 is. That's gonna be explicative laden.
I'm still laughing at that.
How do clerics who pray to gods, warlocks who make blood pacts with demons, and wizards who just use books all exist in the same world? How do the gods feel about demons? How should my wizard who has dedicated his life to learning spells feel about either the cleric or the warlock who haven't shown any dedication to learning the craft that they have? This isn't an answer that I, as a player, can intuit.
Well, that's the game master's job and the story's job to
Right.
tell all that.
Yeah. As a player, I feel that some level of understanding of the rules that govern the setting is important to enable me to creatively solve problems. It's easy to do this with physically based characters because I, as a person that inhabits a body, have some understanding of what a super capable body might be capable of and can voice what I want to attempt to the GM. This sound is a little poppy. Hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, everything got moved because of the con. But if the rules of magic are too complex, hidden, or simply don't exist, taking a spellcasting character from I cast my spell to even though I'm out of spells for today, I want to try to burn some of my physical energy to cast a desperation fireball is difficult. The system simply isn't understandable enough to make this easy to adjudicate. A great GM will often be able to handle the situation, but as a GM, I place a lot of value in systems that are easy to understand so that I can allow my players to do cool shit while feeling it was totally fair and within the spirit of the story we are creating. I also recognize that when it comes to RPG setting, consistency and immersion are things that really elevate a game for me and make it, and maybe isn't as important as other players, which is why I turn to you, Jackers. Nga mihi, Johnny. P.S. I don't really hate D&D. I just wish people would branch out from an RPG for dummies when there are so many good games to be
I would
played.
like to call his attention to the sentence that said reason number 300.
P.S. Drink.
Drink.
I have nothing to drink.
I don't hate none either.
Oh no.
Yes.
Eat almonds.
So I kind of understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I can also.
He's kind of talking about the underlying reason why magic works,
Yeah.
the
What-
technology and things like that. Yeah.
Like, why the fuck do you have spell slots and things like that? Like,
Well,
why is that
yeah.
ordered that way? And like, I have something like for I always do something a little different in a lot of these games so that things make sense to me as a GM, so that I can be off the cuff, kind of like what he's talking about. And so one of the things, like in Exalted, I like to think, because there's no planet in Exalted, right? It's all flat, and you have the 4 elemental poles, and as you go closer to them, it's more and more elemental. I'm like, cool, it's magic. It's just motherfucking magic. That's why it works. But then for me, I like to go all the way down to, like, there are no atoms. Instead, there are least gods that are not they're not sentient. But you have, like, fire and earth and water, and they go together into these molecules, and that's, water is just, like, water least gods.
Okay.
But, like, gunpowder is, 4 earthly gods and 5 firely gods in whatever connection, so that's kind of like like an explosive pattern where like nitrogen
Right.
goes down and releases energy because it bonds with other nitrogen, blah, 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 blah.
You've woven the magic system kind of into the whole fabric of the setting.
So that because when you go from that, then you can have the caveat, of course somebody can just do some ritual and make gunpowder. Because it's all just these Middle East gods. So that means that alchemists are doing stuff I can understand that isn't... And do things like create gold. That's
Right.
totally doable in this kind of world, whereas otherwise it's kind of more difficult to have that caveat. Or just go, okay, well, it just turns into gold. Well, now I know exactly why it turns into gold. And from that, then I can extrapolate on and on and on and on and on. And so that's just, I like to do that. That's what I like to do with world building.
There's some levels here he's going to. One of them is the spell slot thing.
Right.
I mean, D&D is an abstraction. The rules are an abstraction. They're not supposed to be simulated. We're not playing simulationist games anymore. So I think it's okay to have that abstraction up here and then go back down into the world. As long as the world is consistent in of itself, I don't care how batshit crazy the rules are in the world. Like, I don't care how Numenera it gets, as long as it's consistent within the framework, but then the rules on the top, this should be an abstraction.
I think what he's saying is that they are not consistent. That's because how warlocks work differently than clerics,
Yeah.
and that I think what he's trying to say is that it's not. To him, it doesn't feel consistent.
Yeah, and
that
vanilla,
can be
no.
frustrating.
Yeah, and vanilla, no. But I think that's the point of world building and filling it out, like what you're talking about. You did with Exalted. I mean, I've done it in my homebrew on D&D, and I have my rules on how magic works. And clerics are actually more like angels and products of the divine, not really those that worship. And whereas you have a contract with the devil, that's a warlock. I think that's the role of the GM too.
Well, and I think as long as when you're playing a character, you feel like you understand how your character and the skill set that you have and what makes you up fits into that world. And so I do think it's important that you understand the rules and the way that the world functions for your character, so that if things do become more complicated, or if I have to have multiple setting books that I understand in order to problem solve, that is going to be hard. Because then at some point you're either going to have to be yes-anding me and then it doesn't matter, or you're going to have to say, well, it doesn't really work like that, which I've been at tables where that happens too.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, oh, that's not how that works.
And now there's really an ideal solution
Right.
to that kind of situation.
So really, just the GM needs to do more world building
Yeah.
and then inform their
And
players
then you
of
just
that.
make up shit.
Yeah, and Raw Forgotten Realms does not do a good job with this. I mean, anything's possible with no reason. You just say, oh, it's the gods, oh, it's magic, oh, it's the weave, and it's just kind of hand-waved. But there are settings that do a good job of saying, this is why this works, this is why that works. And if the internal logic works, then that's fine if you abstract it and have spell slots.
Yeah, my impression is he would be fine with this if you understood why cleric magic works. Like if you understood the mechanics behind it, not the game mechanics, but the actual mechanics of what it is that the cleric is doing to invoke the god's power to give them the ability to do what they're doing, as opposed to the warlock or whatever. And it's if those things all fit into some sort of celestial orders up there somewhere, I think it would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is kind of a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
It really is. Although, what's the game? Is it RuneQuest that has two different magic systems? I think it's
I only played
RuneQuest.
RuneQuest once. I don't remember.
I think it's RuneQuest. There's like two totally different kinds of magic systems. All their own spells and everything.
Uh-huh.
Because that's one of the things that I think one of the things that D&D does, which I'm sure they do for ease of learning, is here's the big book of spells. Mm-hmm. And then, depending on whether you're a cleric or a wizard or this, you will get these spells at this level and these spells at this level. But there's only that one source of the spells for all the rules. And I think if you're going to have three different kinds of magic, it almost kind of be cool if it's like, oh no, if you're going to do this, if you're going to do destructive magic, it has to be this kind. It has to be demonic or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then to me that would make it a little more interesting.
I was going to say, because I wonder if it doesn't bother me as much because it's magic, it's not technology. Right. So it's like, okay, if there's divine magic and there are gods, okay, then there are demons. So if I can make a pact with a demon, okay, the demon evokes or I can do magic through that pact, through that demonic person, presence, entity. in the same way a cleric or a paladin can perform divine magic. So not understanding like what enables that magic doesn't bother me.
Right.
But
I think it needs to be consistent in of itself. I'm working on a setting now that where the gods have died. They were fallen, literally as stars to the ground. And so what does that mean for a D&D framework? That means no more anything divine.
Right. No clerics, no paladins.
Right. And so where does magic then come from?
right.
And so I just sat down and explained it. Well, now it's spiritual energy. Since there's no God to take you off to the afterlife, your spirit remains. And your spirit can, over time, absorb into the world or be a ghost and
Yeah.
ascend. And that means then we're working off of spirits and spiritual energy entirely. Now, it might have a different flavor. Like, I'm doing this in the memory of the gods, and so therefore... But I'm a cleric. But the actual substance is the same as what a wizard's doing. Just different prescription.
Right.
Now, like, one game I really think had very good internal consistency, like what you're talking about, like, there's god magic and then there's wizard magic. And why is that different is Mage the Ascension.
Yes, that's
It's great because everybody does magic, and there are these different spheres that kind of determine how you do magic, but it's all just what your paradigm is. So, like the Hermetic Order and the Celestial Chorus, they're doing divine magic and they're doing wizard magic. It's all the same thing. And that is a kind of internal consistency I think he's looking for. That's kind of internal
That's really
consistency
good.
I really like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great example. I love
it
that
is.
game.
I have found that magic system to be incomprehensible. I have to play it. I have to
It
play it with
is.
someone who knows it.
The magic, you need a really good GM who really knows how magic works and also how to rein people in so they don't yes-end themselves into oblivion.
Yeah, because it will.
Super easy to
You can
do that.
change time.
And
You can-
so,
Right.
once you, a good GM
That's the
really
par-
knows how
the
to balance
paradox.
that with paradox,
Right.
and also it's like, I don't think you can do that with those spheres, but you can do something like this.
There's somebody that runs it at Strategicon from time to time. Keep an eye on it. Stephen, I think his name is.
Okay.
He does a good job.
Yeah, but it's fun when it's run right. There's also a book series that this reminds me of, and I forget what it's called, and somebody is probably going to know it in chat. But there are like these two people who are like the last of their races, and they each cast magic, but one has like, they use like deductive logic, and the other one uses inductive logic in order to do the magic, but it's still the same thing. And again, that's that same sort of like internal consistency that I like in games, where
I
it's
see
like
what
you're
you're
all
saying.
doing magic, but it's very different from each other, but it's
Right.
still doing magic. So like if there's more consistency, I think, between like, especially like clerics and warlocks, how are they really that different? Well, because warlocks are with demons. Well, the
Right.
gods.
Yeah, warlocks.
Do you have to be
Subjective.
how big of a god does it
Yeah.
have to be until you're a warlock of a demigod? Like,
Right.
and is like, how is that? Why is that different?
Well, warlocks choose it. Clerics don't. I think clerics are chosen. I mean, that's how
That's-
I've always interpreted
yeah,
it.
I mean, I think clerics do because they decide to go to church.
Yeah.
You know,
Poor
they're
guy.
the one who like, I'm gonna be a cleric of this god and like do their obeisance and I love you God, and then the god goes, you're great.
No,
You
that's
know, it's like-
no, that's paladin. I think clerics are actually avatars of the god. They're chosen. I mean, I'm trying to remember.
yeah,
and it might be different by setting. Again, here we are.
in,
the same problem.
again in
Right.
in basic D&D, I don't think that's the case. But yeah, I mean,
Did you think at all about that when you, because you Bloodblade and Tusk is what I'm referring to, has become more and more, not, I don't want to, complicated's the wrong word, but it's a much more rich world
Yeah.
than when you started it.
Yeah.
So you now have, there's 3 schools of magic. You're thinking about other things. There's Fae.
Right.
There, we played a little bit with divine thoughts of, divinity or divine magic or those types of things too.
There's real sinister people wearing cloaks that stand on bridges that have to be attacked.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think about that, or?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, one of the things that we only just barely sort of skimmed by it was demonic magic, because
Yeah.
demonic magic is actual demons that possess people magic,
Yeah.
and people who are willing to make that pact with the devil have an entirely different kinds of spells that they can perform.
can you make a pact with a demon to like partially possess yourself so you have control, but then you have demon powers?
You don't really have control, but
Okay.
yet you do gain demon powers.
Neat.
Yes. And that's its own system entirely.
Yeah.
It doesn't borrow any of the magic stuff at all.
Okay.
And their spells are specifically, I kind of based it a little bit off of The Exorcist. It's like, what kind of stuff would they be able to do? Well, it might be very fast. It might be able to defy gravity, things like that. So, I made that its own thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, here's the list of spells, but you only get to choose these. It's like, it has its own thing, its own source of power and everything like that. And that's a pretty dark fucking text, I will say, because those spells actually require like sacrifices and things in order to
would think
perform.
So I just could see a tiny bit of where it seemed like Abria was going with Katiba, with her character,
Right.
Who was not, dark magic or anything like that, but she wanted to possess names of fallen angels or demons.
Right.
And
Is she a math magician?
mage magician, I think we kept
Yeah,
calling her.
mage magician, yeah.
A mage
Oh,
magician?
her character was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that was
I did.
fascinating.
It did have the demonic has its own magic. Now the schools are just different traditions, but it's
Yeah.
all the same spells. Again, just like D&D, it's like, I don't want to have to make 3 different magic systems just so people can
Yeah.
Because I don't even see the demonic magic ever being used by players, really.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Oh,
but-
as soon as you make it, it will.
I know, but I mean, because it's dark as shit. It's
Yeah.
really dark, and but it's mostly for villains,
Okay.
as
Yeah.
something to fight against.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So, but yeah, okay.
Cool.
So thank you, Johnny, for the email.
Yeah.
And so
Kia ora.
to really kind of whittle it down to essence, our answer is it's your GM's job, and he is not doing it.
He has to do better. We can do better.
And if you want to run D&D, it's not your job. But it sounds like you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And D&D is not RPG for dummies. I don't think so at all.
It's
I
a
think
very just specific type of game
Yes,
Yeah.
it
to
is.
play.
Yeah.
it's a
And-
great entryway into RPG.
But you're more than entitled to.
I
to like
I
not
know
like
people
it.
who love quests, who love
Yeah.
being the guy who
Epic
goes in
hero.
and fights the stuff
Right.
and figures all these things out. I mean, it is its own very specific game, and people who like that game get to play it. That's awesome.
Exactly. All right.
Huzzah.
So thank you, Johnny, for the email.
Yeah.
And then trying new systems from Greg in Virginia. Who would like to read this?
Do you want to split it up, guys?
Okay.
I'll read like the first little bit, and then
That means I have to get my glasses out.
Okay, here we go.
And
Dear,
it's weird because the guy from New Zealand doesn't mention Waitangi Day, but the guy from
I
Virginia
know.
does.
I got all confused when I was reading. Dear happiest of Jacks, Greg here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. If anyone dares read this in an accent, please do a Southern gentleman. I'll let you gentlemen do that.
First, let me wish you a happy
I'm
Waitangi
a
Day.
sheeter.
Drink, my good son.
Happy Waitangi Day, which was like February 6th
Yeah.
or 4th or something.
It's late.
the Wingozy Tango.
Drink. Not sure when you're going to read this, but we can all be Kiwis for a day.
Yay!
Anyhow, drink again until it no longer matters.
It never does.
Yeah, I'm just going to pass it along.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
short.
secondly, I've been digging through your backlog, if you know what I mean. Actually says no, not that one, but I like my way better.
Right.
I've been listening to the APs, and I love them! Especially Star Wars Traveler,
Nice.
Eldamy, and Saga of the Inukai.
Excellent.
I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to write in with a question or comment about something that happened 5 or 6 years ago, only to remember that your folks can barely remember what happened last week.
Especially last week.
That's a way to.
Alone that many years in the past. But I digress. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to?
Oh, you want me to read the 600-word paragraph? Okay.
It's tiny.
That brings me to the third half of my email, trying new game systems. I play in a weekly D&D 3.5 game. We've got a solid group of people and have been gaming together consistently for many years. When I joined the group, we were playing mostly D&D 3. We did experiment with D20 Star Wars, D20 Modern. I played that one. I remember that one. And D&D 4th, but somehow never strayed far from what we knew. When our current 3.5 campaign finishes, there's talk of switching to D&D 5th. A most welcome change, I can assure you. But recently, I've been longing for greener pastures. something other than D&D, sounds like.
Yeah.
I have your actual plays to think for that. My dilemma is this. Out of the 6 players at the table, I'm the only one who has not DM'd a game. Even the newest guy to join us has run a one-shot in 5th edition. I'm starting to get the itch to try my hand at running a game, but as you can imagine,
Excellent.
do it. You won't ever turn back.
Yeah.
It would be like I lost my place because I looked up.
But as you can imagine,
I'm getting burned.
There's
Yeah,
another
on
match.
the
As you
high
can imagine,
fantasy.
I'm getting burned out on the high fantasy stuff.
right.
As an impulse buy, I picked up A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones edition.
I don't know if I wouldn't. If I would, isn't that still high fantasy?
Well, no, that game is
no, no.
not.
I would
Oh, the
call
game
it
isn't
more.
high.
I would call
Yeah.
it more low fantasy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a very
Not everybody has dragons.
It's a very machinacious game. It's about the courts and their dealings with each other. Not D&D.
And
Until-
there's
until the
no
wall falls.
There's no magic to get.
Game
in
of
it. Like
Thrones
people who are magicians are like that's you don't start as that.
Yeah, and there's magic to avoid
Yeah.
Right.
at cost of life. Not D&D, but still fantasy. Started reading through the book, and I started imagining what it would be like to run my very first game. This is also a very complex game. I mean, I read it, and there's no way I'm going to run this. I mean, it's just way too...
I would run it.
I would run it if I
yeah.
had a couple of years to spend on it. Because it's just there's a lot of depth and texture in the game, and I don't know. It was too much.
I will talk about that later.
Okay. Being the only introvert at a table with 5 extroverts, oh, God. Sorry about that. It will be challenging. And learning the rules for a new game mechanic and trying to run that game for this group is starting to make me rethink the whole idea. Should I stick with the game system that I'm familiar with, although I'm practically bored to tears with the setting and mechanics? By the way, 5th, you'll probably be even more bored. I've heard that Pathfinder players really just get really bored with 5th pretty quickly because there are few player options.
Yeah, you can't add them all together for more powers.
Right.
Yeah, right. I recall a past guest criticizing A Song of Ice and Fire. Maybe it's not the best game system for a new GM, but then what is Savage Worlds? Moment of truth?
Yeah.
GURPS?
Yeah.
If nothing else, I hope this is a good topic for conversation. As always, drink. Thanks for all that you do. Greg, Selfish Marlin on the forums.
Nice.
So I remember,
boy,
I
that's a
think
hard
I
one.
know who was critical of Song of Ice and Fire, and that was Joey. Because he
Okay.
had played it before, and his problem with it was that when you increase enough in power, it's not really levels, but as you get stronger, your dice rolls become more reliable because you just add more d6s, right? So if you're rolling 3d6, your average is 11, but it's kind of all over the place. If you're rolling 7d6, you're much more likely to roll near average. And that average is high enough that nothing is really that big of a problem except for the most difficult of difficult.
Right.
So when you get to that part, he was saying that it felt less just interesting because you just pretty much always succeed unless you are trying to tap dance on a flying dragon. Now, some people may see that as being better. I mean, that's what a lot of skill is just being more reliable. Like if you're skillful with a bow, you just reliably hit that target more. But that's kind of up to different groups and different players. Some people may find it better, some people may find it worse, because if you're reliable, then you can take those risks and push up that difficulty to try and do just really crazy things.
Right.
Or some people just will keep it as like their character is normal and their character just always wins, which is kind of boring. So I think that's kind of up to you and your group what you would like better.
I think we
Also-
should, before we talk about specific games, I mean, it sounds like we might need to figure out what he wants, because no high fantasy, right? Did you have something to say on that? And something that's different than D&D.
Well, I wanted to really first, like, don't be worried about being the introvert at a table of 5 extroverts, because they play the game for you.
That's right.
Just
yeah.
don't be an extrovert at a table of 5 introverts. That's more difficult.
Yeah, you want to hang
Then it's
yourself.
just
after
like
that.
you gotta with you. But if they're all ham, just like, this is
just
great. I don't
sit
have to
back
play.
and watch.
Yeah.
Right.
It is fun. Just eat popcorn.
And they'll thank you for such a wonderful game.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, sure.
It's awesome.
One of the things that I'm thinking If he wants a real departure setting-wise, only because I just bought the 7th edition books right now and I'm reading them because I'm going to be running it probably this summer or so. It's Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, it's
Totally different
totally
setting.
different. If anything, it'll cleanse the palate.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a little more judgment. That's not a bad idea. And I've run the system. It's very good, very easy to pick up.
You also just have to get it through their heads that they're not going to defeat the monsters.
No.
Right.
Like, the most useless skill you can have is, like, firearms.
Right.
Like,
Maybe the most
So-
dangerous skill you can have is firearms. It gives
Yes.
you overconfidence.
and so, like, that might be difficult just as that's a big switch.
Right.
But I think it'd be fun.
It'd be a good palate cleanser. I mean, you can do a one-shot. I think that the fantasy genre is going to always sort of fall into D&D. The problem with 3.5 is that, especially if you've been playing it for years, is that this is everything's going to feel probably different and wrong going from that. I mean, that's going to be. I would make a huge departure probably,
Right.
like Song of Ice and Fire or Dungeon World or something that's just completely off the map that can't be compared to.
Oh, yeah, play Apocalypse World.
Yeah, I wouldn't go to 5th
Yeah.
yet. I mean, do 5th later maybe.
Yeah, I'm just wondering though, with the interest in Song and Ice and Fire, if he is just kind of still interested in that medieval sort of fantasy castles, with the whole Game of Thrones reference. And
Court
I'm-
intrigue and so forth.
yeah, and
There's a great system for basically like social combat, but it's not done as combo whatever. It's really, really good. And it's basically like how much can you get the person to like you? Because that's a lot of what doing deals is.
Sure.
It's really interesting. I think it's really good.
There's the One Ring, which is a departure
the
from.
One Ring is supposed to be really good.
I've been reading it. It looks a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it's enough of a departure. It's 5th-ish, but it's low magic fantasy. It's familiar tropes, and you have a good departure from Pathfinder.
I was going to actually recommend Savage Worlds for a throwback back
Right.
into the day. But there is a setting book that I can't remember the name of, and I was trying to check really quick, and the chat room will probably know, but it is, I have a group of friends who played a campaign for like 3 years that was a very Game of Thronesy campaign using this book as kind of a reference, and I cannot remember the name.
Yeah, Savage Worlds will feel trad enough. I think you'd like it.
Yeah. Savage World is
And
close
the rule
enough.
set is, I think it's a comfortable rule set if you're really familiar with D&D and you want to shift to something else, but not have it be. Not that I would try to talk them out of Song of Ice and Fire, because I think it'd be a fantastic game to try. I think the rule set is complicated.
Yes.
Yeah. But Savage World Rifts? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you have people who are used to high fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kick in the pants. It's
that's
a good
good.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a list of games in arm long that if you wanted to switch genres, but if you really wanted to kind of keep looking at this, I would say I wanna,
There's plenty of fantasy Savage Rift setting. I'm trying to remember one that I backed
Yeah.
last year.
There's also Traveler. If you want to go away from that, Traveler's great, and
Yeah.
character creation is so much fun, and it really like helps kickstart everybody like having like these weird ideas for their characters.
And it is a very traditional game, an old game. I mean, it's been updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You're
still,
talking about Mongoose.
yeah, Mongoose. Yeah, don't
buy Traveler 5.
Oh my god. Did you ever get like the I forget which one it is, like I think it's 1st or 2nd edition of like the old Traveler, where there was an entire section on how to do sailing ships, like where there's like
remember
wind
that.
comes this way and it's like what speed you can go to at like what point you're going into the wind. It was
You know what?
hilarious.
Yeah,
It's like
Tack! I am tacking!
why are
Tack
you
quicker!
spending a page and a half on motherfucking sailing ships?
That I believe that was in an expansion book.
Oh, okay.
Because the little books, they had a lot of them. Because you had the basic 3 books that came in the box, and then you had Mercenary, Scout, High Guard,
Right.
all those things. And they added expanded rules. But I do think I remember. I don't remember what it was called, but there was a book that had like all of like the odd, weird careers that no one would choose, and I think Wet Navy was one of them. But it had other ones in there too. I don't remember what the other ones were because I used to have a very extensive collection of that stuff a long time ago.
If you want to go in that genre, Stars Without Number
Oh yeah, Stars
Right.
with that number.
is excellent. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite games, and it's very D&D. But it's I don't know how it's great. It's OSR in space, and it's just a lot of fun.
Starts with Outnumbers is awesome. I would also, along the same lines as, because I'm still riffing on the whole Game of Thrones and that whole thing.
Yeah.
This is not exactly that, but Iron Edda, which will be kickstarting at some point, but you can get the versions that are out now and they are published. It is available both as a Fate game. So it's Iron Edda. That is War of Metal and Bone.
Yeah, it is very metal.
Yeah. And then there is actually a PBTA version that's called World of Metal and Bone. This is a game where it's fantasy. You've got dwarves, but you've got it's kind of
it's Scandinavian
Vikings,
fantasy.
Yeah, Scandinavian culture. Bone bonded.
Chromatic Chameleon says Iron Edda is out last month.
Yeah, it's funded and it's delivered.
Kickstarter.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I believe the
Cool.
digital. I don't know the
And
print.
that's the new Fate Accelerated version, but you can still get the original Fate core.
It's the same designer
or-
who did the second
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
they did. Tracy.
Weaver Child suggests Earth Dawn. Chromatic Chameleon suggests Torchbearer, Dungeon World,
Torchbearer.
Burning
Torchbearer.
Wheel.
Burning
Earth.
Wheel.
I was going to
Earth
say Burning Wheel,
Dawn.
but I was with the whole complicated
It's
rule.
very
Yeah.
complicated, but so good.
It is. Yeah.
I would not go when you mentioned
Yeah.
Fate. I would not go to Fate right after 3.5.
No, I
like that is
I
that's
thought-
a big departure.
Well, that's why I was mentioning, though, that I think it's super cool, because I don't disagree at all, Tappy. I think the fact that it has the World of Metal and Bone, too, might be the PBTA version. Would be kind of nice.
But I really think if you're ever going to play a PBTA game, you should play Apocalypse World first.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
And then Happiest Apocalypse on Earth.
Oh my gosh!
By
Happiest
Christopher
Apocalypse on World. That is so good. It's so good. It's
great.
so
Yeah,
good.
it is. Yeah.
I love Happiest Apocalypse on Earth.
Someone, I think it was Eric from New Jersey, he said he'd given me shit for running a percentile-based system.
Oh,
called
but it's so much better now. They've had limitations. It's not so swinging.
They've
yeah.
fixed it a little because
Yeah.
now they have they basically did what Traveler's done and what D&D's done, where there's a bonus die or a penalty die. So you roll a tens die and either take the higher or the lower. So
And your skills start at a higher threshold.
yeah. They start higher now.
Yeah.
What if you got a set of loaded dice and like the GM would give you the dice that you're going to roll so that like determines where it's going to go more? So it's not a straight D100. It's just like this loaded dice system. And so like
I'm on board.
instead of having it be higher difficulty, you just give them shittier dice. But they're still loaded, so it isn't always going to be that
Or if it's an
die.
additive game, it's like, oh no, you get to roll, instead of 3d6, you get to roll 3d4.
I think we made this problem worse by listing off a whole bunch more games.
Right. Yeah, we may have.
I think it all depends. If you want fantasy, I think Song of Ice and Fire is fine. I would probably do Dungeon World, just to, again, a palate cleanser. And if you would like to switch genres, I love the idea of going somewhere completely different, like Call of Cthulhu,
The
or going into
Sprawl.
space. The Sprawl. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? We didn't even do Blades in the Dark. They should do Blades in the Dark.
Blades in the Dark is not the first one I would run either. I think it is one of the most fucking amazing rule sets, and it's a super elegant game. I think I would play Apocalypse World before I'd play.
Yeah,
See
to
the bones
find
of
your
the
sea legs.
the bones
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
father before you.
Yeah.
Because John, that game is just awesome.
Oh, someone is suggesting in the chat room that Stork should offer to bless people's dice at cons and charge for it. That's a really good idea.
Oh, get him a miter
Right?
with like a 1, a D20 with a 1 on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Incense.
That's funny.
But I mean,
He'd be with a miter. He'd be
A
9 feet
dowsing
tall.
rod.
right. Now, if you are going to run, if you decide to run Song of Ice and Fire,
Yeah.
one of the things that when I'm going to run a game, one of the first things I always do is make several characters, just so I understand how character creation works, and then run those characters through like some sample combats
Yeah, do
against
some
each other.
skirmishes.
Just so you can understand the rules before you get to the table and do it, because you're going to screw up. It always happens. I mean, especially the first time you run something, you're never going to do it
Absolutely.
perfectly, and that's fine.
Yep.
And hopefully you've got players that are open-minded enough to try something besides D&D, because you may get there's also that people are like, I only want to play D&D,
That's-
and I kind of understand why. Go ahead.
No, you finish your thought for sure.
I think you could almost get a degree in D&D.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people have invested an
They get-
enormous amount of time in a lot of, especially 3.5, an old system that's been around for a while. They spent a lot of money on books. They've poured through those books and they've figured out and they've mastered the system.
Yeah.
You know, they've got to the point where I know whatever kind of character I'm making, I know what my goals are for what feats I want to get at what levels and everything. And to pull that rug out from under people who are used to doing that,
Yeah.
I cannot kind of understand why people get reluctant about it. I do. I mean, there are an awful lot of fantastic games out there besides D&D, but I do understand why people get a little hidebound by it.
And in that case, you might have to look for a splinter group or a different group to,
Right.
if they're just, because what you reminded me of is perhaps having a conversation with people beforehand before you get super committed otherwise to this rule system if they're not at all interested in trying something else, or maybe they want to flip the switch and they're like, hell yeah, let's play Cthulhu,
Right.
or let's play the Sprawl mission-based, cyberpunk.
Oh, the
But-
Sprawl is so good.
yeah, but who knows? I mean, they might want to really play something different, or they might want to just kind of baby step in there, or they
Right.
might want to just stick with D&D and then, still do your thing, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there are other D20 based games that aren't high fantasy too. I mean, there's quite a bit. He's mentioned a few of them that they've
Yeah,
played,
yeah.
D20 Modern and stuff like that.
Play Warhammer.
But the new one I hear is great. I haven't read it.
I-
You mean the
Warhammer
You mean
4.
the actual?
Yeah.
Oh, the
No,
new,
no, no, role-playing
Well,
game.
the new one,
Warhammer
they're
Fantasy
coming out with like a
Role-Play.
they've come out with like a core book,
Wait, for
Yeah.
fantasy or for 40K?
40K.
Okay.
Yeah,
40K
fantasy
fantasy.
just came out.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
I don't know if have they released the Warhammer 40K RPG yet?
I'm not entirely
'Cause
sure.
I don't
I've
think
been
so.
chomping the bit to read it because from what I've heard, it's going to be really fucking cool.
Yeah, because I mean, you're going to be able to play aliens,
Yeah.
which I don't think they've ever.
Well,
had
you can
before.
play in the other one. You can. There are certain aliens you can play. Like you can play an orc freebooter.
Oh, okay.
Is one you can play, or you can play a dark elf or a dark eldar is another one you can play. But you can't play all of them. You can't play I don't think there's rules for regular eldar, and there certainly aren't rules for like a Tyranid,
Right.
or whatever. But they've always been very, very minimal and very specific when
Right.
a certain book comes out. So it's exciting to see what they're going to do with this
Yeah.
one. Because you can only play an orc freebooter, which is like an orc pirate kind of thing, instead of you can be any orc you want.
Right.
So that's cool.
Yeah, there's Rogue Traders, there's Coriolis, there's Numenera, there's, there's a lot of trad-y games.
Oh, Mutant Year Zero.
Yeah, Mutant Year Zero.
Gen Lab Alpha.
Mutant Year Zero is awesome, but I
Right?
don't know if I would call it trad.
Well,
Well,
no,
it's
But it's really
that
good.
press does.
Not the new one, but isn't that's the game that was a huge game 30 years ago, and then it was rewritten.
Oh, I haven't read the 30
Yeah.
one. I've just read the new
the
one.
new one. The
Yeah.
free
Yeah, that new one
Aladdin.
is that
But-
is
Yeah.
like the Tales from the Loop kind of
Yeah, it's-
dice
it's-
rolling.
Yeah.
It's from the same company.
Yeah.
Because those wily Scandinavians are making
Yeah.
amazing
Right?
games.
They're making
Right.
really good
Right?
games.
Yeah.
And those games are filling up my bookshelves, and I don't have any game players to play those games with.
Well, that's why I totally get the wanting to play different things all the time. It's so hard to, you
Right.
know. And then you sometimes you want more than just a taste. So,
Oh, yeah.
like doing the one shots at con are such a
That's like buying a flight of beer.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I get a little not quite satisfying amount of 4 different beers.
Yeah. And I really, really liked this one, and I liked
Right.
this one, and but it's like sometimes you want at least a short arc, and then it's not enough times in the hours in the day, days of the week.
Yeah, I always run out of time when I'm running a one shot. It's like, oh, I gotta wrap it up, and I only have half an hour left. Or, oh, I gotta wrap it up, and I'm an hour over.
Well, that's why when I run Call of Cthulhu, I've run one shots of Call of Cthulhu before, and they went fine. But I want to run a campaign. I want to run
Yeah.
that
I
long,
would
slow,
Where it's
Love
like
that.
slow
You
build
should-
up
Yeah.
through
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I would love that.
and not just that, but also explore the fact that these people are going to basically leave their lives behind to go follow something.
Yeah.
And how that's going to affect them. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
sounds so
I'm going to mortgage my house because we have to get on a steamboat to London.
It could be like the endless summer with Gnarly Hotep.
Right?
Do you, are you
Oh,
gonna
that'd be
try
a
to
great
shoot for
con
that
game.
After fair? Is that something you want to look at?
Well,
I can
Traveler,
totally see you doing
Traveler,
that.
it's going to take me a long time to prep it. I've
Yeah.
just barely started prepping it, but I'm probably going to run continue Traveler after fair.
Got it.
So, because we'll have to see where it is,
Yeah.
but I anticipate it's going to run.
I won in that Cthulhu game. I'll do stuff. I'll
Okay.
sacrifices.
Don't say that on air.
Oh my!
Oh my!
There's like 30 whole people listening.
Right. All right. Anything else anyone want to mention? That any con stuff or anything else? Or thank you for the
Yeah.
email there, Greg. We appreciate the email. Anything? Anyone else?
You start fair bill pretty soon, right? So
I think it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh man!
if you're local,
yes.
at the Queen Mary on March 16th, they're having a St. Patrick's Day Eve evening. I think it opened doors. Don't remember exactly. I think the doors open at like 8, and then the downbeat is 9 o'clock. They've got 3 different rooms that they're converting into Irish pubs. And the Poxy Boggards, the Merry Wives of Windsor, and Sportive Tricks will all be the featured bands in these separate rooms.
That's so great.
So, and
Neat.
I think it's
Yeah.
like, I don't remember exactly how much. It's like $25 a ticket, but I might be able
that's
to
nice.
pre-order them or something. From my understanding, is all 3 acts are going to be doing basically 3-hour sets, like 3
Oh my
45-minute
God.
sets.
Really?
So yeah, if you want to come,
Wow.
yeah, we're going deep into the catalog to fill out 3 hours. Trust me.
Awesome. So you're doing the
Oh,
old
that's-
stuff. Yeah.
Some of it.
We just went to the Queen Mary on Sunday
I'm
for Scottish
excited.
Festival, and it's so much fun. I would go early and go on some of those tours. They have really great tours.
Oh, do they?
Ship is
Yeah.
beautiful.
I haven't been there in years.
Me
There's
either.
the
I was
one, the
probably a
engineering
kid
tour. They take you down
Yeah.
into the boiler rooms. It's awesome.
I chaperoned a prom there once.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, they
did
didn't
not.
vet us really well.
I was going to say, how did you get that gig? That's totally funny.
All right. Okay. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, and then con is just around the corner.
Thanks for coming on again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And I'll be
good
here
luck.
tomorrow.
All right. Excellent.
Less traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome
Tune into the
stuff. Hopefully.
Shadowcon and then Traveler on Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Small Game Hunter tomorrow. So we got all sorts of stuff.
All
Yeah,
right.
tune into Tomes. You'll be on at noon, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Small Game.
Thank you for joining us for season 23, episode 19 of Happy Chicks RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Gina.
This is Tappy.
I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next week, Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the same fat channel. And that's it. We'll leave with a song.
From Michigan to Australia and maybe East Timor, be it red, sword exalted, GURPS or Dungeons and Dragons, hero, pathfinder, fate or savage lands, evil plans will be usurping, though we could do with less burping. Happy Jack's podcast will be douchebag song.
As I was going over the far-famed Kerry Mountains, met with Captain Farrell and his money he was counting. Well, I first produced me pistol and I then produced me rapier, saying, stand and deliver, for you are the bold deceiver. I counted out his money and it made a pretty penny. I put it in me pocket and I took it home to Jenny. But she smiled and she swore that she never would deceive me. But the devil take the women, for they never can be easy. I went up to me chamber, all for to take a slumber. I dreamt of gold and jewels, and sure it was no wonder. But Jenny drew me charges, and she filled them up with water. Then sent for Captain Farrell to be ready for the slaughter.
Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
It was early in the morning, just before I rose to travel. Up comes a band of footmen and likewise Rasher Farrell. Well, I first produced me pistol, for she'd stolen away me rapier. But I couldn't shoot the water, so a prisoner I was taken.
Whack-a-ring-a-ma-dee-a-ma-da, whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
Now if anyone can save me, it's me brother in the army. And I think that he is stationed in Cork or in Killarney. And when we get outside, we'll go roving through Kilkenny. And I'm sure he'll treat me better than me only sporting Jenny.
Whack-a-ring-a-ma-dee-a-ma-da, whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
Now there's some as takes delight in the fishing and the bowling, and there's others takes delight in the carriage gently rolling. But me, I takes delight in the juice of the barley, and courting pretty ladies in the morning bright and early.
Whack-a-ring-a-ma-dee-a-ma-da, whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Whack-a-ring-a-ma-dee-a-ma-da, whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Why problem make when you no problem have, you don't want to make?